Welcome to Excel in Retirement Podcast, where we help good people make wise financial decisions so that they can excel in retirement. Your guide is David Treese, a financial advisor who shares his experience to help you achieve greater peace of mind about your finances today and have the information you need to create a plan for your future so that you too can excel in retirement. I'm the host of the show, Andy Traub, and today David is going to help you navigate a crucial area of day to day finance, and that's cars and auto ownership. And it's really focused around this idea that the decisions we make can create a financial burden or they can bring financial confidence and peace and joy and happiness. And those are the ones we want. So, David, thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Andy. I'm excited to be here.
So, let's start with this.
Okay.
What kind of car do you drive, David?
I drive a 2018 Subaru Legacy.
All right. I drove a legacy wagon.
Yeah,
Are you a Subaru fan? They don't make it anymore, but
I've had four of them. So yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah,
Isn't it
yeah,
interesting how we become like like I'm a Honda guy, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
But yeah,
I was I was a Jeep
what
guy
about your
before
what?
that. I was a Jeep
What's
guy.
that?
I was a Jeep guy before that. I had two Jeeps before that. Yeah.
I have
Oh,
a friend of mine in college drove a Jeep and I rode in it once and I was like, this is the most uncomfortable
yes.
car.
Yeah. It's like a tractor.
I was like,
It's like
why do people drive? It was
yeah,
cold and I was
yeah.
like, I'm like, you have to like zip the windows. And I was like, who thought this was a good idea?
It's
Anyway.
very durable though. Indestructible.
Good for you can have your durable, I wanna be warm.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't wanna feel the wind when
As
the windows are closed.
yeah, as Andy has
Um,
a puffy vest on.
Absolutely. Uh, what kind of cars your wife drive?
She has a 2017 Outback, Subaru
Oh,
Outback.
okay. You guys
Yeah.
are full on and Subaru
Yeah.
fan, yeah. Now listen, I've got a 16 Pilot and
Okay.
my wife's got a 14 Odyssey, right?
Okay.
So,
Nice.
again, we could have a Subaru Honda fight, but we'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
Um, and so today we're gonna talk about the importance and, the idea around and the habits around automobile ownership. And if you're listening and you're like, I do not want these guys to lecture me about my car purchasing. I like my car. That's fine. We're not here to lecture anyone, but I do think if you listen to this whole episode, and it's going to be less than 20 minutes, okay, you're going to learn something about finance and cars that maybe you didn't know before, and it will surprise you. So if you want to be surprised, keep listening. And if you feel like you know everything, then then you'll hear more of what you already know.
That's high
So
expectations, Andy. High expectations.
yeah, I expect someone to learn something because I learned a lot in researching this episode. And I do think I know we're also gonna have some really practical advice. If you're like, I really like driving nice cars, cool. We have some really practical advice for you to keep driving really nice cars and do that in a way that is really smart in your finances, which most people, not most people, some people think you cannot drive a really nice car and be financially smart. And I think that's dumb. That's a
Yes.
dumb statement. So, anyway, so here's the thing: the average new car loan amount was over $41,000 for a long time, uh, and that amount has gone up and up and up. And some people would think like, where do you get a $40,000 car, right? But that's the loan amount. This is some interesting information about the average car payment for new vehicles increased by 2% in 2025.
Hmm.
And that the other part of it that is interesting is leased car payments went up by 4%.
Wow.
Okay. So, what's happening is, and there's graphs on this, and I can put them in the show notes, is you look at sort of the general cost of inflation and then the cost of cars, it kind of looks like college
Hmm.
costs, which is college costs have gone up, up, up way faster than general, the wealth of so I heard this story about the math of college, and I remember kids who were my age and they would work their way through college.
Mhm.
And they said, okay, if you had a $5,000 tuition, then how much would you have to make per hour at 40 hours a week if you wanted to work your way through college? And it was like you had to make like, 15 bucks or something like that. And now it was like you have to make $120 an hour, right?
Impossible.
To work your way through college. Basically, you
Right.
can't do it. And
Right.
so that's what we've seen. But here's the number that I want you to guess if you're listening to my voice right now. And David will share the number, um, approximate. But if you're listening right now, what do you think the average car payment is in America? If you're listening right now, What do you think? I'm going to give you three numbers and you get to pick one. What do you think the average car payment is now in 2025? And I'm going to give you three numbers. Ready? 425, 612, or 749. All right. And this is from lendingtree.com. And I've verified it across a lot of other sources. But if you chose the big one, 749, you're right.
Isn't that what a mortgage should cost?
That my first mortgage was $720
Yeah, yeah.
on my $100,000 house,
Right.
right? But here's the thing, folks, that's the average. You know what that means? There's a lot of them out there that are more, right?
Yes.
So, David, let me ask you this: how have you approached owning cars in your home?
Yeah, I guess it was beat into me as a kid that you buy a car and you try to get the value out of it by keeping it as long as you can. So
Okay.
after driving those Jeeps for so long, I wanted stuff that was gas efficient, and so I didn't
Mhm.
want to be spending a ton on gas. And so I think that the way that you get the value, in my opinion, is to keep a car for a certain amount of time to be able to
Let's
get the
get
value
specific
out.
about that. How long do you think is too short? And then, do you ever drive a car until the wheels fall off?
I mean, I never drive a car until the wheels fall off. I have done that, but I've gotten stuck in the middle of a four-way intersection doing that. So I determined I wasn't going to do that anymore. So I
Yeah.
try to get rid of it when it's trending in that way.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as I'm not having to take it to the mechanic like more than once or twice a year for something outside of routine maintenance, I'm good with keeping it. You know, I think it kind of gets to a point though, like typically the car wears out before the engine wears out anymore, and so your
Uh,
stuff starts falling apart and
yeah.
whatnot, which is always annoying. But I've never wanted to be car poor, and maybe I would have more fun in life if I was or spent money on that. But I always view it as I would rather put money into my business or put money into my house and
Yeah.
things that appreciate over time. It seems like a bad deal when we put money in things that just automatically depreciate with every mile we drive.
Yeah. Let's talk about that first. And let me see if I've got this in my notes here because I think I had a chart on this, but it was about the depreciation. Oh, here it is. Average new car depreciation. So I think one of the challenges is first and foremost, if you're hearing this, you are marketed to.
Yes.
And somewhere, sometime, a decision was made in the car business that we are going to put out a new car every year. Like we take that for granted, but like they say no, every year we're gonna make a change. They don't have to do that. They could just keep selling one and then, you know, like Apple releases a phone usually every year or a year and a half, whatever, but they don't release one every month or every 2 months. So my point is someone decided along the way, we're gonna add a new car every year. And again, I'm very pro drive nice vehicle, feel comfortable. Like I like
Yeah.
to feel good when I get in my car. But just so folks know some numbers, and this is part of the things for those who go, I know a lot about this. You might learn something new. I think you're going to learn something new. The first is the first year you buy something, right? The value of your car usually goes down in the first year 15%
Mm,
in the first year. So let's just do some simple numbers. Let's go with a $60,000 car. Okay, so that's $9,000,
mm,
right, in the first year. So 12 months later, you could sell that car. Um, for $51,000. And the challenge of that is that you've lost $9,000 of value, and you've had a car payment during that time. So you didn't just lose $9,000; you're going to lose $9,000 plus whatever your payments were into that, right? So
opportunity
there,
cost.
what's that?
The opportunity cost, what you
Yeah.
could have done with that money.
But here's where it gets tougher. In year two, and again, we'll post this chart in the show notes. You're down to 72% of the value. So in 2 years, you've lost almost 30%. So now it's worth almost $40,000, and that's just in 2 years. The third year, it's down to 60%. You've lost 40% in 3 years, right? And then the fourth year, you're down to about 53%. So in 4 years, it's basically half, right? And then in the fifth year, it's about 45%. And so I think the question to ask yourself is, how nice is a 5-year-old car? What are your thoughts on that, David?
5-year-old car is typically pretty nice still, right? You know?
Maybe I'm just getting older where I like get in the car and I'm like, this is a 2020. This is
Yeah.
like the Jetsons, which also
Right.
ages me, right? But I'm like, this is fancy.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and they're like, yeah, it's 5 years old. I'm like, I'm cool with 5 year old stuff apparently, because this is really nice. And it's half of what it was.
Yeah. I guess the people that drive Toyotas are probably all naysaying because they're known to keep their value pretty well.
And I would say
Sort of
this, I would
the
say this. I
one-offs.
think that's a great point, and some
Yeah.
people are listening. I love it when you bring up the objections because someone is thinking that right now. And I would say is that's fine, but it didn't keep 90% of its value. Maybe it's got 40, maybe it's got 60% of its value instead of 50% of value. But and listen, I'm down. I want to keep a car that I want to own a car that keeps its value, but it's not it's not holding that much, and it's
Yeah.
certainly not appreciating. And
Right.
so where I think there is a sweet spot, and we've done these, they've done research on these things, is that this is interesting. Is um, I researched cars from 2020, David, that were luxury cars around $60,000.
Okay.
Okay. And so this is from February of 2020. And so these $60,000 cars are now probably 25 or $30,000.
Mm.
2020 Acura MDX. Acura makes a great car. 2020 Audi Q5. 2020 BMW X3. 2020 Cadillac XT6. 2020 Jaguar F Pace. Lexus RX. My point is, if you could find one of these cars, they're not $60,000 anymore.
You know what's crazy? I always look at the used car lots, you see going down the road, and I just looked at one, and it had a Mercedes, and it was like this really nice Mercedes sedan, and it said $12,500 on the window, and the big yellow green letters, they put at the top
Yeah.
of the windshield.
Yeah.
I was like, I bet that car was like at least 75,000 when it rolled out, and they're selling. It always surprises me how Mercedes don't keep their value like that. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah, and you made a great point earlier, which is some keep their value much better than others. I'm not saying that they all follow that track. We're dealing with averages, but my point is, if I could own a Jaguar, I'm not a Jaguar guy, but if I could own an Acura, but probably of those cars, this is a fun story. I was riding with a friend one day, and I got in his car, and he had this very nice Acura. Like I got, in, I was like, dude, this is. I'd literally never ridden in an Acura before. I mean, not because like I avoided them. I just didn't. And I got in, I was like, you ever like sit in a car like and you're like, whoa, this is super comfortable. And then you're like, this is interiors are nice and da 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 da. Da. And his name is Nathan. I said, Nathan, like, I've never been in an Acura before. Like, this is really nice. Like you close the door and you don't hear anything on the outside. You're like, whoa, you know. And he goes, hey, funny story about this car. I go, yeah. He goes, you know, a car I used to drive all the time. I go, what? He goes, BMW. And I'd pull up and people would just think I'm the biggest, and he used a bad word, you know, and a jerk, whatever, and people would treat me different and drive-throughs and people flip me off when I drove by him. Da, da, da. He goes, my Acura is just as comfortable. It costs less, and nobody judges me for driving an Acura. I'm not
Interesting.
a jerk
Yeah.
for driving an Acura.
Yeah.
Apparently, I'm a jerk if I drive a BMW. You know what I mean?
I've
So
heard
I was
people
like,
say that.
so you paid less and you have less judgment. He's like, yeah, and it's just as comfortable. So I tell you that story because I love nice cars,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But I
me
think
too.
we're paying this tax on perception,
Yes.
and it's a very. My point is, it's a very expensive tax.
Yes.
Some other numbers to consider are that the average loan has expanded tremendously. It used to be 4 years, 5 years. Now they've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year loans on vehicles, you
Same.
know? And that's not like a service to the consumer. That's a bank saying, "Hey, yeah, pay me interest longer," right?
I always think
Um,
there's a sweet spot when you get done with the payments before you have to start making repairs. That's how you
yeah,
so if you're stretching it out 7, 8 years, that window is getting really small.
great point. Yeah, great point. And here's another encouragement to all of you, and I've done this math with my wife before because we had an issue with my son's car, which was my old car. If you're listening, I'm sure you've had this situation before, is that something happens and it's going to be, couple grand or 2,500, and you're like, oh man. And this inkling, this little devil jumps on your shoulder and says, you could get a new car. You know, you could just not pay that and just sell the car and get a new car. And I do this math Because again, if it's $2,500 every other month, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
problem. But then I do the math and I go, well, what's our car payment? If we switched and it's a $500 car payment, once I fix this thing for $2,500, as long as it lasts me another 5 months, I'm
Yeah.
okay versus adding an extra $500 on to because this is for my son's car, which was paid off, you know.
Right. Right.
And I was like, yeah, I'm not excited about spending because it was happened. This probably happened to you who are listening. You're going for the oil change, and you're like, Mr. Johnson, we need to have a conversation. And I'm like, no, and it's
Worse.
not about the air filter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
suddenly you're excited about the air filter costs, even before you were not. And it was like, hey, we got this, 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 and this. And my son was really discouraged. And I said, hey, buddy, your car's a 2011. That's almost as old as your sister, as a teenager. Maybe it's older than your sister. I was like, that's just we're gonna pay it. And that was like 8 months ago. But yeah, there is that math we sort of get into. And so I want to ask this question.
So, Andy, you're leaving us hanging there. Have you had to make any other repairs in the last 8
No,
months? No, that's
no,
awesome. So it worked
no.
out.
So it did work out. And I get it. At some point you don't want to throw bad money, throw good money after bad. So let me ask you this. You've also dealt with some higher cost repairs. There's a story you shared with me once about a nail in your wife's tire that you weren't really
Yeah.
prepared for. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the Subarus are all-wheel drive, and so the tires, you have to be really careful to make sure that they're all the right level. You can't just replace one tire at a time. And so Mallory has some skill set with picking up nails in her tire.
We all have
Yeah,
talents, and
yeah,
hers
yeah,
is one
yeah.
of hers. One of hers. Yeah.
So her nail was in the inside wall, so not the exterior, but the internal
Oh
wall
wow.
of the car. So you couldn't repair it. It was
Oh, it was
damaged.
unrepairable.
So we had to put 4 new tires impromptu on the car, which, yeah, if you were not planning for that or had not prepared for that, that could have been a problem. But yeah, fortunately, I think we had like probably less than 10,000 miles before we'd need to do it anyway. But still,
Yeah.
you didn't get the full utility or the full usage out of the tires. But yeah,
Well, and
that's
it's another reminder that if we stretch ourselves too thin
yes.
and we can't absorb that $1,000, you have to
Yep.
buy 4 tires, and 4 tires for $1,000 is probably a good deal nowadays. By the
Yeah, it
way.
is. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I've had a friend who had this same situation. His wife tire, and they were like, You're not allowed to buy one." Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, your car will not let you put. I mean, you can, but it will tell you very quickly you're not allowed to run with just one new tire. You got to get all four. But it's also having the room in your budget um, to be able to absorb when something goes wrong, not if
Yes,
something goes wrong.
for
You know.
sure. Yep, it's only a matter of time. So important to have some money set aside for that.
Yeah. So if you were going to sit down with someone and said, "Hey, what do you think is a path for me for car ownership that will help me improve my wealth over the next 15 to 20 years?"
Well,
Give them 3 things that they should be doing.
that was a good segue. I mean, I think figuring out your budget need, number one, so what it takes to pay your bills every month, and then you
Start
look at
there.
your yep, start there, look at your income and see how much money you have left over, and then evaluate whether you have some money set aside in an emergency fund to take care of the tires when that comes up. And then based on your discretionary money, you can kind of determine what kind of payment you would be comfortable with, or if you could save it up, maybe even and pay for it outright over time would be a better alternative. But yeah, so it all comes down to budgeting. Without budgeting and knowing what it takes to pay our bills every month, we're kind of operating in the dark.
Absolutely. I do think there's a challenge that people forget about, which is that you can buy, you can buy a brand new car and have an $800 payment. You can buy a 5-year-old car and have a $400 payment, and it's 5 years older, but you've got a less of a payment. Um, but all those things are depreciating,
Yes.
unless you're a car collector, and it's like, how much do you want to pay for that depreciation? I like to buy things that are older because that depreciation has slowed down so much.
Yes.
It's still depreciating every year, but
Right.
it's slowing down in its depreciation,
Yeah.
and it's like, I want someone else to pay for the depreciation,
Right.
right?
One of the first clients, I worked in my dad's office up in North Carolina, where I'm from, and one of his clients, he would have various different cars in his yard, and he would basically drive whichever one of them ran that day. And he would
That
come
day.
in, and he worked in manufacturing, and he was one of the wealthiest clients we had at the time, and you would never know it based on the house that he lived in or the car that he
Yeah.
drove. And so the point here is that when you're not focused on those things and you can be comfortable or content not having a brand new car, it allows you to build wealth a lot of times because you can use that lost opportunity cost, like we were talking about earlier, and use it for
Yeah.
compounding and really be in a better position later in life.
Yeah. Listen, I don't want to offend anyone, but I'm about to say, so I don't think I will, but it's going to be about my daughter and my wife and my two daughters, and my wife, and the way they do math. And they own this. They own this. But there is this thing called girl math.
Girl
I don't know if you've
math.
heard about
I have
this.
not
Okay.
heard about girl
Oh,
math.
you haven't? Okay. Well, your
No.
kids are still pretty young.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
girl math is this. And it's not just girl math, but
Okay.
they're like proud of it.
Okay.
So girl math is you go into a store and you want to buy this article of clothing, whatever it might be, for $100. Then you find one for $50 that's just like it. And girl math is, I just saved $50. And you're like, no, you walked in a store and you walked out of the store with $50 less. And you're like, no, I saved $50.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So my point is, there's sort of an abuse of that, but I also want to encourage people to sort of use that mental math and go, what if I bought a brand new car? So let's get really practical. Go look at a brand new car. Go look at a 2025 of whatever model you want. Then go look at the 5-year-old model, go find one of those and go, wow, like that 5-year-old model, I could do that. Usually like whatever's easiest just at the dealership, probably the worst thing for you. Just so you know.
That's how
Just so
that
you know.
works.
Yeah. Well, David, thank you for that great advice. And folks, we hope this has been helpful to you and practical in that nature. And we want to encourage you to visit clientsexcel.com, reach out to David, and he can help you with these conversations and others about your finance. So thank you, David, for your time.
Thanks, Andy. Great tips. Take care.
Investment advisory services offered through Creative One Wealth, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Clients Excel and Creative One Wealth are unaffiliated entities. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by any government agency and do not provide tax or legal advice. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss. Licensed insurance professional. Insurance and annuity products are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Investment advisory services are provided in accordance with a fiduciary duty of care and loyalty that includes putting your interests first and disclosing conflicts. Insurance services have a best interest standard, which requires recommendations to be in your best interest. Advisors may receive commission for the sale of insurance and annuity products.